So it seems that this is one of those games that some people have heard of and would recommend to any gamer who loves horror games, but no one seems to own a copy. I've seen copies go on eBay for anything between £50 and £100, though that's either for Japanese versions or French versions, whereas there's a US version on Amazon for £600. I managed to get a copy for not for that price, I can tell you. The reason this game is so expensive is because it was deemed too naughty due to some sexual undertones involving young children. Fucking suck it up is all I can say to that. Yeah, some weird shit happens in this game, though I've still yet to see any signs of rape, though there has been a lot of intimidation and torture, but it just comes across as if people have only just discovered that video games contain scenes that some people find offensive. Hey, you know that there's this thing that seems to be quite popular. It's kind of like a box, but with a screen on the front, and you can look at it and see other people live out their lives. It's called a television, or at least I think that's how you pronounce it. But the thing is that there have been stories put on there that include scenes that some people find offensive. In one film called The Godfather, someone puts a horse's head in someone's bed. And in another film called Dogville, Nicole Kidman gets raped a lot. But what all of the dickhead politicians who instantly fear the next form of media entertainment, claiming that it's the hellspawn of the Antichrist, what they don't get is that the people who play violent video games are actually more intelligent than them, and you want to know why? Because as gamers we can tell the difference between what is happening in a video game and what is happening in real life. For example, in Postal 2, I wouldn't batter an eyelid if someone asked me to set someone else on fire, decapitate them with a shovel whilst they're running around burning, and then pissing on their corpse once they're dead. But apart from that one time, I'd never consider doing anything remotely close to that in real life. What happens in a video game is not real, and I better get back to the actual game I'm supposed to be talking about before this goes any further. Rule of Rose is fucked up. There's no question about it, but honestly, I was expecting some kind of hidden jewel with this one. You know, like it might be the greatest horror game ever and no one else really knows about it, and you've just discovered it. But whilst I'll say that if you like horror games then this one does deserve your attention, much like the book Great Expectations, it wasn't all I thought it would be. The main problem that this game has is that it's ripped off two other games and then insisted we play it. The two games it's ripped off are good games, mind you, but it still doesn't feel like this game is its own thing, like it's leeching off the others. The games it feels like are Silent Hill 2 and Haunting Ground. From Silent Hill 2, this game has taken the psychological satire motive in that all of the weird and disturbing shit that's going on is reflecting your own deeds and actions that we've yet to find out about because the plot twist hasn't happened yet, whilst from Haunting Ground, there's a dog. A Labrador called Brown, who's probably the best character in the whole game, because he's essential in finding items and solving puzzles, you can order him about and you can use him as a weapon, just short of picking him up and hitting the enemies over the head with him. The commands you can give make me laugh though. In one case, if you order Brown to go find something, Jennifer will yell out, "Go!" at the top of her voice. You know dogs have super sensitive hearing? I'm sure if your fart whispered go, he'd still do it. Brown can find almost anything you need, though mostly he finds biscuits, which are health items, typical dog. By the way, Jennifer loves food in this game. Hey Jennifer, what do you love eating the most in this game?
Come.
I thought you were going to say biscuits, not cum! Jesus Christ, girl! No wonder you steam through all those mince pies. It's for the whipped cream, isn't it? And yes, that was a euphemism for those who didn't get that one. Well, before the bar gets lowered anymore, let's talk about the actual game, shall we, Jennifer? The story gets you playing as Jennifer in England during the 1930s, and apparently she loves cum. At the start, a small child runs up to you and slaps a label on you that reads unlucky, so for the rest of the game you're referred to as the unlucky girl, and you've been sent to a boarding school for some unknown reason so that you can... Again, some unknown reason. You're just there, it doesn't have to make sense. Well, actually it should, but I'm betting the plot will get round to that later on. You instantly realise that the school's been taken over by the children who are all a bunch of brats who will need to go to the timeout corner and have established their own secret society. In the process, they have established harsh rules and regulations, and have killed or abused many of the adult staff within the school. Jennifer is their new plaything, and she is given several goals to complete whilst there for the club's own amusement, or she'll be killed. The goals start off simple enough. Find an item or something along those lines, but as the game goes on, she'll be asked to perform some very questionable actions, usually involving the torture or manipulation of other people around the school or other members of the society. Most of these levels are shown in flashbacks as you read short stories that have been written by the same boy at the start of the game. The game plays a lot like a Silent Hill game, and even has that same shit camera design. Whilst I like Silent Hill for its atmosphere and scares, I didn't think that the combat was great, though it can be forgiven because this is a survival horror game, but the camera just did not like you, and would often prefer to look straight at a nondescript wall rather than the horrific enemy that's looming towards you. Well, Rule of Rose does that same thing. Though you can change the camera angle, it only works if you're not near a wall, and even then it's very specific about where it wants to go. In the first boss fight, I found that I could only change the camera from one position that didn't help to another position that also didn't help. Fuck knows how I won that fight. I just remember hiding behind a corner and shivving the dude several times until I got rewarded with a cutscene. Controlling Jennifer also feels stiff, and it's even worse if you set the movement controls to the D-pad rather than the left analog stick, because this starts to earn your thumb after a while. Actually, the gameplay gets pretty dull pretty quickly. Most of the time you're just following Brown from one item to the next, and then occasionally deciding on whether or not to slaughter a few children with bags over their heads, or just run past them, ignoring them like they're a dog pack and you're Caesar fucking Milan. And the combat is pretty bad too. Like before, it can be forgiven to some degree because this is survival horror, and an unfriendly combat system helps to add tension, but here it's just gotten silly, with Jennifer slashing a knife into thin air with one arm, and cowering and hiding her face with the other. And trying to turn her in any other direction other than forwards whilst in a combat stance is like trying to operate a tank. Yeah, I think you may have got the impression that I don't like Jennifer, and for good reason. Look at how she's standing with her arms up to her chest like she's gonna start crying. And this stance never changes at all throughout the entire game. She keeps up the poor me stance throughout the entire fucking thing. Yeah, sorry to keep going on about this, but this is really just a Silent Hill game. It's freaky and you want to keep playing to see how much more messed up things get, much like Silent Hill. So in that sense this game's pretty good, but there are some aspects about this game that I just don't get or simply don't like. Camera and controls and Jennifer and combat put to the side. First of all, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing here? Yeah, it's one of those games. You're dropped into a large area and you'll have to do something very specific in a specific area with a specific item that you can only get by flicking the light switch in one of the rooms on and off 30 times, then clicking your heels 3 times, then going into another room, standing on your head and hitting a particular floor tile with the steel pipe, then getting up, kicking Brown up the arse before chanting a satanic blood oath. Well, okay, maybe that was a bit extreme, but you get the idea. You're dropped into an area with no clue as to what to do, and even when you know what you need to do, there's no way of knowing how to do it unless you comb over every square inch of the surrounding area with both your own senses and Brown's nose, and... You know what? I've just reminded myself of how much I fucking hate these types of games. An objective would help, because this is what separates being in a strange environment with some idea of what you're supposed to be doing, which naturally leads to a well-driven narrative experience, and a clusterfuck experience, where you just wander around aimlessly and inevitably get bored. Sorry, you'll hate me, but Silent Hill did this as well. Though that game wasn't nearly as bad, mainly because you have a relatively useful map, whilst Rule of Rose claims to have a map, but it might as well be used to wipe Brown's brown ass for all the good it's for. But even in Silent Hill, you're expected to do and know a little too much. Yes, just focus on what's being said and you'll have an idea of where to go, which is absolutely fine. But there are times where I'm supposed to know that there is an essential item lying on the front of someone's doorstep down an alleyway that you've never been down before, nor will you do after because the story never takes you there. I like games with challenge, hence why I'm still in bed with Dark Souls, but I don't like games that expect too much from the player. Going back to Rule of Rose, just because the developers planted a random item in a hard to find location and they know it's there because they put it there, doesn't mean that the rest of us will figure that one out. I'd like to add another criticism. What the fuck is Jennifer's problem? She's getting bossed about and bullied by a bunch of kids, yet she does nothing to stop it. In one cutscene, she's forced to prod a fat girl with a rat on a stick. Yeah, you heard that one right. But whilst the scene was weird, I just couldn't get on board with it. Why doesn't Jennifer just turn around and beat the other kids with a stick instead? She's an adult. Hitting kids is an essential part of becoming an adult. Or at least that's the attitude I've been taking. She's getting shoved around and is pretty much letting this all happen. You know what? She's not unlucky. She's just a pussy. An adult-sized pussy that loves guzzling cum.
Sometimes I think this life is killing me. Sometimes I think this life is killing me.